Thank you, Lynn. I heard that. We're just getting ourselves resituated here. And we are making great time. So thank you all.
I noticed there was something in chat, but I didn't want to open it because I don't know if that then shows up on the live stream.
Oh, the chat? No, I don't think that it does. Oh, I think that was just it. I missed that earlier. Symphony.
I figured it out. We're good.
Okay, cool. I figured.
Nope.
All right, I think we are all back and we have 5 more applications to review. So I think we can just get started. The next application is from Play by Play Theater in Green Bay. And they're requesting $2,000 for the first year of their Percy project, a free immersive theater experience that will cater to K through 2nd grade students in the Green Bay area, as well as students learning at Sybil Hop School, an educational setting and program option for students with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. So there'll be 3 different tiers of activities that they'll offer to the cooperating schools to choose from to best fit with their community of learning, and project activities and a family night and a final performance would be completed between July and December 2023. So they are requesting the $2,000 for artistic fees, sound tech expenses, and some remaining operating expenses. And True is our first reader on this one.
Can you tell me the name of the organization one more time?
Yeah, no problem. It's the Play by Play Theater.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting application, and I love how they, like you were talking about, the different tiers that schools can choose from. Let's see here. I put winter recess, that this is another way that kids can be a part of it, and this is something that's different, that the kids have different choices. That this is a way of bridging gaps of funding because of all the art cut fundings that's going on at schools. I love that they have trainings for teachers to effectively teach the arts, as well as integrating co-teaching together. That this is going to bring in unique theater experience, and they're also pulling like other aspects of learning, such as like science, dance, music, and reading. They talked a lot about learning needs as well, and I liked how at the end they talked about like the different ways of assessments and data collection. And I think there's something else that I wrote in here. Oh yeah, and I like the idea of having like consistent feedback is what I put.
Okay. Thank you, True. Leah is our second reader.
So they're primarily going to be working with elementary schools in grades K through 2nd grade, I believe. I like that they're pairing what they're doing with the national art standards. Being an educator, that's important. The curriculum is going to be written by a certified artist integration specialist, and I found that to be unique. I didn't really know that existed, but I like it. They're going to be bringing the theater where it's not usually accessible. So in schools that do not have a theater program, I think that's going to be really important. I love the fact that they're going to be involving Sybil Hop School. And, those are our students that have, there are special friends that have developmental disabilities. So I think it's really wonderful that they're going to include them in. They're going to also integrate the program into the core classes. So finding the relations there, I think is important. They're going to include the students, the educators, and the families all together. And I also liked the details that they put into the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 as well.
Thanks, Leah. Chris or Symphony or Susie?
My biggest takeaway from this one is that I also really enjoyed the 3-tier approach. I thought it gives people different entry points for where they might be. And I just appreciated their attention to detail and outlining all of that.
Were you starting to say something there? No. Okay. Symphony or Chris?
I can go. In rereading and going over it, they use arts integration a lot, which sometimes can be a buzzword. I would have liked to see a little bit more in terms of like how the approach would be different while including the arts, because essentially, you know, that's what arts integration is a change to the approach in how things are taught. But other than that, I think it's a really cool project. And I too enjoyed the tiers because it made it digestible in terms of how it will be rolled out. So I appreciated that.
Thank you, Tiffany. That's helpful. And Chris, any comments on this one?
Yeah, actually, I found more information about the arts integration. It's kind of inside what I'm looking at and doing a lot, and really some great resources. In fact, this quote hit me: "As students begin to find their creative voice inside the walls of the classroom, they will soon make the connection that they are the brushstrokes that will continue to integrate the world with art." I'm like, that was really beautiful. That's in the arts integration portfolio sample that was included, which is really well put together. So again, you kind of got to dig for some of that. And what I would recommend is to take these great pieces, you know what I mean, and get that back up in the narrative a little bit more. So it's not so buried, because that was kind of a hard one to find, but it was great when I found it. So yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. All right. If there are no other comments on play-by-play, go ahead and score. Right. Okay, our next application is, Sharp Literacy in Milwaukee. They are requesting $6,000 for the first year of their Craig Montessori greenhouse mural project. So this is a partnership with community artist Tia Richardson and Craig Montessori to revitalize their greenhouse space, create a mural and a hands-on greenhouse classroom, and bring Sharp's garden and greenhouse educational programming to Craig Montessori students. Students and teachers will meet with Richardson to provide input that will inform the theme and overall concept of the greenhouse mural. And there will be workshop opportunities during the school day for small groups of students of all ages, K-3 through 8th grade. Once the artwork is completed, a celebratory school assembly will be held to honor the work that's been created, and the start date has yet to be determined, but the total project estimate is about 6 to 8 weeks. So the $6,000 is for artistic fees and services, and Symphony is our first reader.
So I did some research and I was really excited about this project, given where this school is located in Milwaukee. This project is definitely one that is needed. I was really impressed with how Tia is going to work with the community on this project to activate it, and how they are including also the school community once it's completed to kind of full circle moment the project. I also noted that the program has 50 school partners and 20 plus summer learning opportunities. I was really interested in how they broke down their demographic in terms of folks that engage with their programming. And they were very clear and honest about that. I also jotted down that their evaluation included observations and surveys to kind of summarize their program's impact, which I thought was really cool.
Thank you, Symphony. Chris is our second reader.
Yeah, when it comes to these type of projects, I really look for that interaction that's going to be taking place. So it's not just someone that's beautifying the space again. And again, I saw evidence of that where they talked about 2 design reveal meetings, one for the students and teachers, but also facilitation of 18 estimated 30 to 60 minute painting workshops. And that's like, yes, good. Because again, that puts the teacher, the artist right inside there with the kids in the community. And that's, again, what I think is going to make a huge impact. So I agree though with Symphony, everything else that was said.
Thanks, Chris. Susie, are we true?
I would just like to say that part of it is also going to have a community paint day. So not only is it going to be the students, but they're actually going to pull the community in to paint as well. And that's going to make some really great connections for these students.
Thanks, Leah.
I would agree about the community paint day. That's sort of what really helped me in terms of like crafting their overall narrative, because I was worried that the potential of the engagement would be a little bit low, but then really having a community paint day, bringing the community in, I think was a great way to sort of tie in that engagement piece.
I just said that this was an overall really well written grant proposal, and it covers the needs of the colored students in finding purpose of the mural, and that it's awesome that they're working alongside the artists.
Thanks, Drew. Any other comments on Sharp's application? If not, go ahead and score. Right. I think those are all in. The next application is for the Building for Kids in Appleton. Sorry. They're requesting $3,900 for a second year of their after school and summer explorer camps. So camp activities encourage exploration in the arts, sciences, and humanities with the goal of enhancing arts education opportunities offered in the Appleton area by deploying the skills of local professional artists. So this year, the Building for Kids is working with 2 musicians and a ceramics teacher to provide facilitated activities during the Explorer camps. They're also hoping to pursue other local artists who are willing to share their experiences with the participants. Summer Explorer camps will run July through September 2023. At the Building for Kids location in Appleton, and the after school camps will run on Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the 2023-2024 school year. So the $3,900 is for artistic fees and services and marketing expenses. And Susie is our first reader.
Okay, after I say my initial comments, I would love for anybody to correct me if I missed any information in this application, but I wanted to like this application more than I did. I think Explorer Camp is a really worthwhile thing. There were a couple things I had some questions about. I think the artistic value of this project is really high. I think the community impact is high, which are both great things. It was really hard because they had no linked work, no photos, no descriptions. That I have found with the other applications has been so helpful in getting us to visualize what they're doing, seeing who they're impacting. And that was my even greater area of concern, is that they're offering these programs, but they didn't talk about any sort of specific recruitment areas in terms of working with, socioeconomically diverse clientele. Some of our other applicants did a really great job of saying, we're working, with the autistic community. We're specifically directing ourselves toward Black and Brown communities. We are, working with the Indigenous population. I wanted to hear more from them about who they're seeking to include and why it would be beneficial for them. And again, after you read 20 of these things, you kind of lose executive function. So if there's something in there that I missed, somebody please point it out and tell me that I missed it. But I think Explorer Camp is a great idea. I love that they're including something like ceramics. That is not something that kids can get at home. A lot of time with two-dimensional artwork, it's a little easier for caregivers to replicate that in a home space. The fact that these kids will get a tactile experience like ceramics and stuff like that, I think is fantastic. But again, I just wanted to hear a little bit more from them on who they're seeking to do this for and how they're going to reach some of those populations that our other applicants talked about.
Thank you, Susie. True is the second writer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Susie. So yeah, everything that you said, I totally echo that. One of the things that I did like about how they, did go in and talk about other things such as like, what is the power of play, how they have this like trust-based relationships with the community members and how people are invested in them. And they have like exposed hands on our project, but like, what really are those things? And I graduated with a BFA in ceramics, so I am super excited that I bring this. And I totally agree with you, Susie. Not a lot of people can get their hands on, ceramics, and plus you have a kiln that you have to put off, so there's just a lot of process. So I was really excited when I read that too. And then when I saw about like steel drumming, I'm like, what is steel drumming? But I agree with you that there wasn't a lot of things for us to kind of go and dig into, really get more information on.
Thank you, Drew. Leah or Symphony or Chris?
I would have liked to have known the demographics. I agree with what she said in the beginning about not really knowing who the outreach is, who they're reaching out to.
Thanks, Leah.
I appreciate the specific information about, the folks that would be teaching, like there's a little bit more specific, although then it kind of opened it up to on the other end to say they might incorporate others. But there certainly is a level of expertise that would be employed into this as well. Although I share those same concerns, I was looking for those extra, like, give me a little bit more so I can really gauge the depth and the impact of all of this. So I agree with my colleagues.
Thank you, Chris.
I think they had good intentions. It talked about in there wanting to include, I think 25% of their folks would be working with a guest artist, but they only have 2 listed down that they will be working with. And then they mentioned numerous times how they would be including like ceramics and musicians. And so there was a gap in like how they were going to, in their intent, and then like what they actually wrote about. So that was the stickler for me.
Thank you, Symphony. That's all really helpful feedback. And I'd say go ahead and score if there are no other comments.
I do have one question about the budget. It says like there's $725. Does that include like both artist payments, or is that the contract services for the artists?
Let me pull that one up 1 second. And if anyone else has it pulled up and has a good sense, please feel free to jump in. So you're asking about the artistic staff. Yeah.
Because then like are like they paying like double for the artist? I just was unclear, that's all.
I think that, the contracted services would be for those artists at 1,800 under artistic fees and services. And then artistic staff there, I guess, would be staff at, the building for kids staff that are staff time dedicated to the project.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Great. Okay, so our next application is Very Young Composers in Clover, and they're requesting 5,500 for the second year of their Very Young Composers online program. An after-school program for 4th and 5th grade students who are going to be working on composing original music. So year 2 is an expansion that will provide new expertise for current elementary school music teachers and undergraduate music majors and future music teachers. So the program will partner volunteer University of UW Stevens Point and UW Eau Claire music majors to act as teaching artists with elementary music teachers from the Stevens Point area and the public school and Eau Claire. And I just noted, and you all will have a better sense of this maybe, that, this is an online, Very Young Composers online, but I wasn't sure on, what portion or if the entire process will be in person or online. So wanted to throw that out there because as I was trying to work up the summary, it just came up for me. So 5,500 for applicant org, administrative and artistic personnel. And Chris is the first reader.
Yeah, what's great about this is that it's very intentional to create. I mean, that's one of the hallmarks of this, right? Is the grants to help create. And one thing that is not seen a lot in music is create. We tend to recreate music that's already been created, but especially for young kids, that's a part of the standards that's often missed and just shied away from. So what I appreciate about this is a direct line to creativity through music. And the heartbeat of this, in my opinion, are the music education majors and the folks that are at the schools, because they're doing a lot of legwork and it's all in kind. So I appreciate that. That helps to keep the, like they're able to get a lot of great experience for those folks. So it benefits the collegiate music educators because they get to mentor these 4th and 5th graders. But at the same time, they really help to do a lot of the work of this. This is a pretty well funded thing. The other thing I kind of look for is like, okay, who else is chipping in? And they've got ASCAP, the Wisconsin Arts Board, but then NEA. So it's like, this is a project that's been pretty well funded. It's connected to the New York version of this. Obviously, it's received awards already. The Creative Sparks Awards is one that the Wisconsin School Music Educators Association gives out. So there's success already built into this that I find that's reassuring, obviously. The roles seem to be very well defined. Again, they've done this and now they're expanding it to include even more students, which to me is a big, hallmark that, yes, okay, so it went well. Now they want to benefit more students and so on. It also leverages the university system. which I think is something that is great when you see connections being made to use systems that are already in place to help benefit the impact and the amount of where the money can go. And then just looking at the number of institutions involved. I mean, between UW Stevens Point, Eau Claire, all the Stevens Point schools, Eau Claire schools, and then back to the New York Philharmonic and so on. Yeah, seems like it's pretty well laid out.
Thank you, Chris. Symphony is the second reader.
So some of the questions that I had about this, thank you, Chris, because I echo some of the things you said. It was noted about some of the partners that they have and some big name folks who have been involved with the project. But I guess some of the questions that I had in terms of the online capacity of this is how were students getting instruments? I don't know if I misread it or I didn't see a clear plan on how they were going to get the students the instruments. And so I would have loved to see more of a narrative about that. And then I also just knowing that teaching is one thing, but then teaching musical instruments virtually, what capacity are the students from the university, how are they getting trained to be able to kind of navigate management and the content area? So those are just some of the wonders that I had when reviewing this application.
And I can answer that. It's not instruments. It's strictly composition. So what those kids are doing are they're saying to the music education major, like, here's in my head, like I'm hearing this. And then they go through like, okay, this is how we can talk about music. And then the college kid writes it down and then performs it for them on their instrument. And then what they're going to expand it to, if I read this right, and this is, if I understand it, I think this year they're actually going to have like a full symphony or band perform it up in Eau Claire or something. But the kids don't actually play the instruments. They're just getting at the creativity of, okay, this is what I hear in my head. So if that helps.
I appreciate that clarity because I don't know why that didn't click for me while I was reading, but thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That's helpful. Other comments?
I think that the reason why you probably, because there's a lot written down too. Yeah, but then it does show that there's like a 2-week, I think this is like a 2-week project and it like kind of like sit down. So, but that's what I really appreciate about this. I'm a person who likes to have a little bit more than not having enough. And so I appreciate that about this grant. And, it impacts my community because I'm from Eau Claire. And so I think this is a really great program for our students to be able to be involved in.
Thank you, Drew.
I had to be an art teacher during COVID. So I totally understand the virtual aspect of things. And during my experience, it would have been helpful to have had someone on the other end managing, like, how are they going to manage that classroom setting, with the students. But that was the only thing that I really thought about was the virtual piece and how they were going to correlate that, how they were going to work through that. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Leah. Susie, any comments on this one?
I had a lot of the same questions that other people did. It was very well thought out. The additional funding they're getting from some of these other, big name organizations is impressive. Again, in the top, sort of like you said at the beginning, Caitlin, I had some questions because it did say like virtual and in person, like a little bit of both. So I was a little curious as to what the breakdown of that would be. And again, sort of I mentioned with a previous applicant, I'm curious to see how strong the virtual learning will continue to be the further removed we get from this. So I hope they're able to get some concrete feedback and do evaluations and surveys to continue the programming. If it is successful, great. I think one of the only other things I had written down was that you've probably noticed you haven't heard me comment a lot on like budgets or numbers or anything of that nature. I'm way more passionate about the actual programming. And when you watched one of their YouTube videos, that was the compelling aspect for me, to see a student write a piece and then have instrumentalists come together and perform it. That was incredibly moving. So to know the confidence that that's instilling in kids was a very compelling piece of this application for me. So I really appreciated the content that they provided in terms of videos and things like that in order to help really bring this all together.
Thank you, Susie. Other comments on Very Young Composers application? If not, go ahead and score. All right, our last application is from Right on Door County in Fish Creek. And they're requesting $4,000 for a second year of a week-long Kids Wow Creative Summer Writing Camp experience for elementary age students, grades 3 through 8. And the summer camp was previously offered to grades 3 through 5, and they've expanded this year to include 6 through 8 with a goal of 24 participating students. Younger grade students will create a big book of stories with plot and characters developed by playing games, reading excerpts, and experimenting with a variety of storytelling exercises, while older students will use letter stories, folk tales, journal writing, and more to explore creativity and creative writing. $4,000 is for teaching artist stipends and travel expenses. And then Right on Door County's administrative and artistic personnel and some remaining operating expenses. And Wea is our first reader on this one.
Okay, so I am ready to take a nap after all of this, but it has been a very rewarding experience, and also just to see all the arts that are out there. So with this one, I was really thrilled that they listened to the parents' request, because they used to offer it only to younger children. And so by doing their surveys and stuff like that, the parents requested that the program be offered to older students. It is a week-long day camp, and it's split into 2 pieces, the younger children first and then the older children. I kind of wanted to know, I guess I wanted to know the background of the week-long camp before. Was it an all-day camp, or if it was, you know, half a day, just for my own curiosity. They talked about the big book of stories, and they put a little bit of detail in there as to what was going to, you know, how they were going to form this big book of stories. But for the 6th through the 8th grade, they didn't really offer like details. They put words in there like folk tales and journal writing and things like that. But I wanted to know, was it going to be based off of their experience in camp and all those things that were happening on the campus and that kind of stuff. They are going to be using two published authors, and I thought that was phenomenal, because those authors can give a line of experience that a non-published author would have. They also stated that the students would leave with a packet of completed stories when they leave, and I think that's also important too. I like this one. I'm not a writer myself, but I do illustrate children's books and things like that on occasion. So I guess maybe being the artist, I would have liked to see maybe a little bit of that tossed in there, even though it's a writing thing, you know. But that's about all I have.
Thank you. We got Susie as our second reader.
I think the program sounds great. It's fairly limited, only being offered to 24 kids.
Right.
It is fairly new in its inception, so maybe they're limited by space and maybe they're hoping to grow that number. So I was a little concerned about the impact. The educational value to me seems high. There is artistic value in writing. I agree with Wia. If there's a visual arts component, you know, if they're also illustrating these stories, I think that would help tie in more of an artistic value. The cultural impact is rather low to me. They did talk about basing these off of like some folk tales and things like that, but I would like to see potentially like more exploration of stories, different cultural storytelling experiences, maybe, or in recruiting the published authors or teaching artists, maybe seeking people, intentionally, BIPOC authors or anything like that to sort of like bring more of that cultural element in. I do agree with Wia. I really appreciated their attention to the feedback and survey, that whole process to include more ages. I thought that was great.
Thank you, Susie. True or Chris or Symphony?
Yeah, my big concern too, I look budget versus impact, and 24, I'm with you, Susie. 24 is and again, it's kind of giving grace to get kind of things up and running, but I'm just looking at where those budget dollars are going and then saying, well, over $2,000 for the artistic person, it's like 24 kids it's just not a lot of kids for the amount of money. So I'd like to see those numbers be higher and if they're going to do marketing, it's like, then let's go out and get a bigger net, so that's just my thought.
Thanks, Chris.
I echo everything that everyone said. I agree with everything.
I had something, but I lost it because I was listening to everyone too, but yeah.
It's the last one. Well,
It is the last one. My brain is like,
yes, to be expected. All right. If there are no other comments on the Right on Dark County application, go ahead and score it. And then Dale, what do you think? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? How long will it take you to?
10's probably safer.
Let's take 10 and Dale's gonna average the scores and rank them. And then we'll come back and look at those. And then, we can talk about your recommendations. So it is 1. So let's say 110. Say 2-minute warning or your overtime. So we cruise through these. And maybe it didn't feel that way, but you made my job easy. Great. Share his screen with those average rank scores, and then we'll just give you some time to look and see if one of you want to jump in with recommendations on, if you'd like to set a floor, and if so, where that might be, and just your funding recommendations. And like I said earlier, and Susie asked, we won't ask you to deal with the dollar amounts. Those will be factored, based on the scores that you've assigned today. So thank you for that. But this is more just, if you see a break, if you want to call that out, and yeah, I'll just open it up, but give you a couple minutes to look that over.
And you're talking about a break within the scoring at the far right column.
Yes, yeah. So on the far right are the average scores, and they're ranked by those averages. And if you do see, like I said, a break in scores where you feel like above this point, I'd recommend these applications for funding. Below this point, I would not recommend these for funding. Or if you, would like to put all of them out there, recommend all of them for funding. So I'll just open it up for discussion.
And I would just say from past experience that what we're hoping you find if you do decide to look for breaks is a significant break. So not like a break between, that's just a couple tenths of a point away, but more like a solid 1 or 2. So a larger break to propose setting a floor beneath which no applicants would be funded in your proposal. Or again, as Caitlin said, not to set the floor at all. That is up to you.
Does anybody want to get us started on that conversation? Have an initial thought?
Because I would like to see them all funded, honestly. I will go with the consensus of the group, but overall, these were all really good programs.
Others' thoughts?
I'll echo that with Rhea. I think that if there are enough funds, we should, because I think overall they all impact, the education of our students or the people that are involved in their clienteles. Even though some of them might not have had really strong application, but in general, I think they all bring something forward, and they all hit different pockets of people that they support.
I agree.
Symphony or Susie or Chris, how are you feeling?
I'm kind of going with the group here. I agree.
Yeah, I was looking at, you can see kind of the bottom two, you know what I mean? But here's the thing, it's I agree. There's not a lot of writing in there. And, I'm looking at holistic impact on as many art forms as possible and in as many locations as possible. So, and I'm kind of with Susie. I'm the Oprah, give them all money. Yeah. They can all have money. It's not even that. It's a lot of money, but then again, you look at the scope of their work. It's good. God darn it. Come on, Jeff Bezos, just give money, people.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. If you tell me that we've got $92,850 to give to all these groups, I will say, let's do it. If you say we need to trim it back, I would probably find the break at those bottom 5 And if you want us to get nitpicky, we can, but otherwise, even with Right on Door County, I feel like they're presenting an art form that we didn't see in any of the other groups. So I would recommend that all the projects get funded.
So I
Would you be
can tell you-
opposed to, oh, sorry.
It's
Susie,
okay,
would you be
Symphony.
opposed to,
Go ahead, Symphony. No, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. It's so weird in the virtual space. I can't really. Would you be opposed to the bottom 4 as a break? So that 1, 2, 3, beginning with Dare to Dream, if we had to make a decision.
So under 89, that sort of
Yeah.
89 to 86.8 gap.
So I'm just going to provide some clarity. The disembodied voice is Karen on the sidelines here. And so, I mean, if the governor's proposal goes through, we will have this amount of money next year to fund. I can tell you that one of the reasons we don't ask you to go into dollar amounts is because we have this beautiful formula. So while we don't actually have $92,000 to put into this particular program this year, we have a formula that will give those with the highest scores the greatest percentage of their request. And then it goes down from there, right? So we look at the number of applicants, the amount of eligible requests, and what you're saying is 92,850 are eligible for funding. And so then we would take what the money that we have and we would put it into the formula, and those at the highest would get the greatest amount of their request. Those at the bottom would get the smallest percentage of their request. And we would use the money up that way.
And I think you just answered my question that I had in my mind too. Like, is there a way that you can do so each of them does get money, but then maybe not all that is requested? So I think you just answered the question.
And that, again, turning back to you, and you saying, we believe that everybody should get funding, given that there's not enough. We expect that there will be, whatever you guys can do according to that formula, you'll do. Or you can say, now that I know that they won't all be fully funded, I want to revisit some of these because maybe they're not, So.
Would it be, I'm sorry to interrupt.
ahead,
Would it be
Susie.
helpful if we identified ones that we do believe should be fully funded?
You can, we tend to not do that. I mean, you have a lot of hundreds up there. You've got a lot of very high scores up there. So, they probably won't get, if you're second and you have 2,200 in requests, you'll probably get your full 2,200. You may not get your full 6,000 at Flutes at Dawn, but you're going to get 5,000 something, probably. I'm guessing based on past.
And I think too, like in the grant world, when you're applying for grants, you kind of know going in that you might not get fully funded. So like as someone who's writing a grant, you should probably like find other ways on how to fund your project. I think that's what I want to say. Does that make sense?
And I'm actually pleased with the ranking and how it all fell. And if the formula does all that hard work for us, I trust that process.
It sounds like they're, oh, go ahead. Chris, was that you?
Well, I'm looking at it too, like I want to encourage them somehow, some way. You know what I mean? Like Right On wasn't nearly as good an application as Flutes, but it's like they're doing good work. And so it's just like a little bit of money just at least says, hey, keep on keeping on. Let's go, man. It's the art. So I agree with Symphony. If the computer can generate it out, then I'm okay with that.
I wish it were just a computer. We'd just push a button. George has he's worked out this formula. So, that's great.
George is a computer. He's
Exactly.
a computer.
Exactly. So that's really helpful. So it sounds like based on your scores, there are none that you have enough concern about that you wouldn't recommend funding all of them at this point, based on that formula. Great. All right. Well, the hard work is done. Thank you all. Like I said, you made that a breeze on our end. So thank you for the time that you put in today and the time you put in advance of today. It's really, it really makes our work possible. So much appreciated. At this point, really the evaluation discussion is, your feedback, both on the process, your thoughts about how today went, thoughts about, trends that you saw, applications, that you, I guess, best practices you'd like to comment on or that you noted. Maybe what wasn't in the mix that you were expecting, just feedback like that. And anyone, please feel free to hop in.
I can start, and pardon me if it's a little loud where I am. I think what I really appreciated from most applications were the ones that included visuals or videos. It just helped, being that I'm a learner who definitely does better with audio. It really helped illustrate the narrative for me in most cases when applications had like a full spectrum of text, photos, videos. And so I really, really appreciated the ones that had that.
I absolutely agree with Symphony. Like anybody that included photos, videos, samples, I was way more compelled to fund their project. It really, really makes a world of difference in helping craft the narrative of an application.
Yeah, that was a big note that I put down, that those work samples and support materials helped y'all really contextualize and maybe fill in if the narrative didn't do it for you. So I'm glad to hear that those were helpful. And that'll be really helpful feedback to the applicants that, you commented on. So that is great.
I wanted to add, Caitlin, like I really like how you did the description and how you did the location and the amount that they're requesting for. It was just really concise. And, I think with your organization, you knew how long it was going to be versus like, I think with us coming in, we might go beyond 15 seconds. I don't know. So one thing too, I think would be good is to kind of have like a budget narrative, just so that like some things we get more information about like what their funds are usually using for. I think one of them, the one with like the mural for one of the middle schools, like they were going to use it for supplies, but like on the budget sheet, it doesn't say supplies. It's just like extra fees or something like that. And I just wanted to know more.
So maybe even just a text box with the budget to fill in gaps sort of between the narrative and the budget.
Yeah. So there's like, like the regular narrative, and then there's like the budget narrative. So it's like $5,000, what is that $5,000 going to be broken into? Maybe like that's for staff, right? So then the staff would be like, the administration, she would get like 1,000. The support staff is going to get 1,000. The artist is going to get like 2,000, something like that.
Okay, that's helpful. I think, right, I'm just trying to picture the narrative. Right now, we have that sort of allocation of WAB funds and they sort of break it down there. But you think a narrative piece, even if it's a couple sentences to correspond with that, would be helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And it's really, that was one of my questions, was us providing, especially for Symphony and True, you've done this before, and we had the panelists provide the summaries and get the conversation started that way. So I wondered if it was helpful to you all. I mean, I felt Karen and I were chatting about it before, and it was like, we flew through these, and maybe that's because we sort of laid out that project summary, and then you all could dive right into the strengths and weaknesses. But how did y'all feel about that?
I loved that. I loved that you presented the description. If I'm being honest, I was kind of tripping about it. Like, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do a good job describing this to everybody. Also, too, after you read 21 of these, you lose executive function a little bit. So sometimes it wasn't until you described it that I was sort of recalling like, oh yes, this is what this one is about. So having you do it sort of helped bring it to the forefront of my mind and then look at my notes. So I felt like you doing it is 1,000% preferable to us doing it.
I also think it was important for us with you doing that first part, gave us more room to have conversations about our wonders, our questions.
Yes.
And that I think is more important in this conversation than providing more of the contextual information.
Symphony, you just nailed one of my concerns or questions, which was with us doing that, sorry, embodied voice, with us doing that, did it prevent you from, I mean, sometimes when we watch panelists doing the presenting, they kind of go through the thing and they're like, this is this, and this, and I had a question. And so it kind of reminds them of some of their questions. And so what we didn't want to have happen was to have to lose that piece. By us doing that kind of distillation, are we cheating you of the opportunity of finding those questions or those wonders? And it sounds like a resounding no, which is awesome. And what we
No,
were
in fact, I feel like it allowed us all to focus more on our questions and thoughts and comments than if we had presented it ourselves.
that's what we hope
Yeah,
for.
that's really helpful,
Thank you.
really helpful feedback. Other thoughts about the applications you saw or trends you observed? Just this review process today?
The program, the platform you have works, you know what I mean? Having the application on one side and the scoring thing and like that, you know, can be clunky with other groups. Like this seemed to work pretty well. One thing I thought though too is, you know, when we were doing the points today, I have a love-hate relationship with rubrics because not everyone fits in boxes. But then again, it seemed a little subjective. It's like, well, that's an 18. You know what I mean? It's kind of like norm referencing, you know, even if it was just like boxes, just to remind myself of, okay, excellence kind of looks like this and that. I don't know. You've got quality. I mean, I feel like the complete idiot on the panel. These are all amazing people, and I trust they're going to come up with the right number anyway, and they probably don't need to be micromanaged in that way, but that's just something to consider maybe.
And that comes up almost every year. I say, Chris, you're not the only one who wants a rubric. So Susie, were you going to jump in there?
No, I just agree with what Chris is saying.
Karen, do you want to,
So-
because that comes up fairly
It
often.
comes up and so pros and cons for sure. And for us, I mean, as long as you're true to yourself and consistent, that
Right.
shows in all of them, right? So if you're going to be a hard grader, you're going to be a hard grader. You're not going to like say, oh, I've just eaten lunch and I'm really feeling very passive, so I'm going to give them 100%. Now I'm going to go back. But you know, on the other hand, we certainly see how it is comforting to just be able to measure yourself against that box. So
Some of the
If you-
trends that I noticed. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, did you have a response?
No, it was just me again reiterating love-hate relationship. I don't like boxes and I don't want to be in a box. So I kind of like open-ended. Sorry, Symphony, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say that some of the things, trends, I guess, that I noticed is that many of the programs are very interdisciplinary, and a lot of them were around, I don't know if entrepreneurship is the right word, but definitely helping folks understand that you can have a career in the arts. And so I was really happy to see that programming is out there that help people think about their creative sides and how they can actually do something with that and make a living, which warmed my heart.
Thanks, Symphony.
can I ask a question about our 50th anniversary work that's coming up? What we're hoping to do in this coming year, 12 months, starting in August, is to not only shine a light on the work that we've been able to do around the state, but yeah, can you hit the okay there? But also to shine the light on work that others are doing, especially sort of all around the state. So I don't know that there's an easy or straightforward answer to this question, but if there's anything that you saw within this body of 21 applications that you would say, wow, this is going to be happening in that time frame, and you should have a regional meeting attached to that thing, or you should make sure that you highlight this thing, in the months of activities, or if anything like that pops up, please let us know, because it would be really helpful. And at this point, I think, Lynn, fairly easy to integrate into our timeline, shining a light on some of these remarkable projects that we are able to support in our 50th year. So if you have a gut right now that says, oh yeah, you definitely want to, highlight this thing, put it out there. If you say all 21 are awesome, you figure out when it happens and get there, we can certainly look at that too, but whatever your gut reaction is, I'd be grateful for it.
A lot of them, with the video and stuff. I just wonder if that wouldn't be just a reach out to an ask of them, which would be, if you can document or, provide us with some evidence. I mean, being there is one thing, but then also just having that to highlight on your own website. And I don't know, because it was fun. That was really, really enjoyable, seeing all these different videos. I'm like, well, look at that. Oh, that is so cool. So I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Using the work samples in some ways. Yeah. Yep. Great.
I know Susie had to step away. Chris and Leah, as first-time panelists, how did you feel? Susie sent me a note. We were emailing last night. She had a couple questions, and she was like, or maybe it was earlier in the day, like, I'm intimidated by the process. And I was like, no, it's just going to be it should be an enjoyable process. I mean, a long day, but an enjoyable process. So what did you all think as first-time panelists?
I was a little nerve-wracked about it. I didn't quite understand some of the process, and like when we go in for the second review and we're supposed to enter in things there, I didn't really understand it. So I didn't make as many notes there, and I made notes on paper. And now seeing how it works, I know I need to put all of that onto that form, because it makes it easier to pull up and look at and compare and see what, instead of flipping through paper, which is what I was doing this whole time. So yeah, I think using that format and understanding that it's okay for you to put all of your information that you want on there in that area. And I don't know why I didn't conceive that or understand that, but today I do. I understand its significance. I also found it interesting in what other people were saying, like what their priority was for each one of the applications. Like a lot of people talked about budget. Some people didn't talk about. I did not talk about budget. For me, budget was not the thing. It was, of course, I'm an art educator, so it was education, curriculum, integration, all of those things. So I think it's really awesome to have a variety of people on the panel that represent different aspects of the art world. And, so yeah, so they'll, and it's not a complaint. It's really on my end was just, I should have put all of my notes on the form that you provided,
I mean, and you had no trouble flipping through and having those comments, I'm not concerned about. I didn't see the paper flipping on our end.
I was just like flipping through, trying to find all the different things and stuff. And because I made some notes in them, here and there, but I wrote everything down on paper, and that's probably due to me being old school. But I do like the idea of putting it on the form. Put everything on the form, because as I was watching you guys on the screen here, and I have my monitor over here, I saw, okay, look, I could be looking at this right now. No, I'm having to flip through paper. So, it's a learning curve.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you calling out the expertise that everyone brings, and some folks are going to call out the budgets, and, having you as an educator and you taking a day out of the classroom today to be here is really appreciated, because it's not often that we get to have educators here on the panel with us. So I just want to call that out, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Leah, if you articulated, verbally what you had on your papers, you don't have to enter any of that in if you were thinking about like trying to go back and fill in gaps. I bet you weren't saying that, but I just wanted to clarify that.
I thought about it.
As long as you
Don't sweat it.
as long as you put it out there like this, or somehow, in the form, that's all we need. And maybe this is a great time to ask the question, how can we make it clearer in the orientation that's kind of the idea it is for you, just to kind of help encapsulate the thinking.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who all was going to see everything. And I think if I know that it's for my benefit, it's for me to see and to be able to use in the final review, I think that would help the person know that that's what they need to be doing. Some people might get that concept. For some reason, I did not get that, what that form was for.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're right, it is a public record. So if the applicant says, I didn't get enough out of the recording that I watched on the panel discussion, so tell me, what else was the thinking that went into that score? Then we do go back to those sheets and.
See, and I think that's something we should know. We should know who's going to see it, what's the benefit of it,
Awesome, thank you.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
Because that would have helped me
Yep.
understand it. I should have put it all on the form. And then, and it's going to help me during this meeting because I have it on my screen and I don't have to flip through papers and that kind of stuff.
Well, and conversely, applicants might see what you write, so don't just blah, 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 everything down.
Right. And we need to know that. We need to know that the applicant could request.
Yeah.
And that you weren't alone in that, because I think that was part of Susie's, and Susie had to hop off to pick up a sick kiddo at school, but I think that was part of her concern in wanting to make sure all of her written notes were going to be, something she'd want to pass on to the applicant. And I said, if there is a request, I would sort of summarize those. I wouldn't necessarily just copy and paste and send it to them, but it is a public record and that's a really good point. So we should just call that out in the orientation. So that's helpful.
And about those review sheets, I wonder, because we ask your panel, the local arts panel and the folk and traditional arts panelists to get us those sheets and those comments the day before, right? So noon yesterday for you guys and noon today for the local arts panel. And I haven't checked to see if anybody has gotten there or they all have or whatever, but I'm just wondering, as we kind of suss out our own processes, is part of our thinking there is to help you guys, kind of just do the brain dump 18 hours ahead of time or whatever, so that you're not, so that those last few hours, if you want to do a refresher, you've already got them in, you've got your comments in. And so this is just kind of a refresher time before the panel meeting happens, or you just do it at the panel meeting, however it is that you roll. And so we're in part thinking that this is something to do to help you as well as to help us. But I'm turning to you all to ask, is that helpful to have that noon deadline the day before? And are there any barriers to doing that we should know about? Because we're still kind of figuring this piece out too. Would love your honest opinions.
For me, it would be really good to have at least at the end of the day, just because I know that my day is super busy. And first I wrote down 12 o'clock and in my mind it registered as midnight. So even though we said noon, so but then I have so many crazy things going on all the time that we tend to forget. And I think if we could do it at the end of the day, I think would be good.
Would it be helpful to do the end of the day before or the end of the day before that? So on Tuesday, end of day. So you have today to just kind of breathe and then the panel meeting the next day. Would that be helpful?
I think either one is fine. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't want to assume that it's helpful at all. I mean, maybe you will tell us that you would rather just be able to, not even do an initial review and then just do it on the day of and just put it all in there. And if you have, so we're really open to whatever is going to be most helpful to you as we think about what's helpful to us and applicants too.
I found that it's not all the same. Like the ones that we were the main reader, I wanted to make sure I had a lot of good documentation and then second reader kind of similar, but then the other ones, I just wanted to make sure I really understood it. And so maybe not requiring a written portion for that, you know what I mean? Because to review 19 of them and to write 19, things, it's maybe it's your first and second, and then you leave the other ones just to,
Awesome. That's really helpful. Yeah,
I love that.
What he said on the screen over there. Awesome. Great. Did you unmute to say something about the review sheets, or are you good? Okay.
I would just
I'm
add
good. Thank you.
I throw one more thing in there too, is just letting people think about, and maybe you do this, but where they're going to spend that money. And maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, you can spend it where you want, but to me, it's like, look, if you're going to use the 6,000 and it's all towards administration fees, you know what I mean? And like the concept of your work is to bring in an artist and like, you know what I mean? I don't know. It just looks weird when some of those things kind of happen. So it's just to be mindful about where you're putting those dollars.
And what you're telling the panel about your priorities. Now, if you have a corporate sponsor that has covered the artist fee, you know, and it shows that in the budget that that's a thing, then that's one thing.
Yeah.
Then that's helpful. But if it's,
It's
yep.
it just, you can infer some things from that a little bit. And I think sometimes it's just they just throw the numbers in to make things work out in the math, but I think it does tell a story. So
We talk about how the narrative is the word portion of the proposal and the budget is the number portion of the proposal. So you have your story in words and you have your story in numbers, and they should align. So if your whole narrative is about the artists and all that stuff, and then you put it all into admin without really explaining how that works contextually within this organization, that is harder for the panel to swallow, for sure.
Thanks for calling that out, Chris. Other thoughts about this process?
I'll just say it gets easier every time I do it. So I start to learn a little bit more and more about the process. So year one, I was a wreck. Like, what is happening? There's so much coming at me. But this year, I just needed help finding the link. And then once I got the link, I was good to go.
I'll say you had a newborn that year too, Symphony, and it was like COVID and there was a lot going on that year. So
It just makes me wonder, should we have a mentor process? I mean, have a previous panelist call the others and say, hey.
it's not that bad.
I mean, we do, one of the things that I think is helpful, unless you're just mad busy, which is true of most of the panelists, is to be able to say, look, here's the panel meeting from last year. Go on and see what one review discussion looks like so that you get a sense of the flow, the camaraderie, whatever. And it demystifies the process. So having that as a tool is awesome. But if there are other ways, we would really love to lower, not increase your blood pressure when you say yes. So if there are ways for us to do that, please let us know.
Not having to do that opening thing, that was a little frightening. This morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's all dependent upon me to like really sell this thing, in a way.
So that's interesting because we had in the orientation that all you needed to do was talk about strengths and weaknesses, and we would talk about the sort of initial stuff. But I think you may have gotten some material that gave you the another impression.
Yeah.
So where is that? Because we've got to withdraw.
Yeah, I was like, we gotta
pull that language out. So where was that?
It's when we log into the next.
Oh, it's on Smart Simple, isn't it?
It's like right on top.
Because we asked, and you mentioned that, I meant to call that out. You were saying, I wish I had my notes right here. And I was like, oh, that section where we say, here's a room for your notes. And this isn't something that we pass on to the applicants, but I forgot that we say that you're going to give those.
Because we just put that in at the panel's request a couple
last year. Yeah.
I just want a place to do the projects. So we're not used to being there.
So sorry about that. We are just working out
and then you got the surprise gift today.
Oh, that was great. I'm like, yes.
Well, that's good to know that it takes the pressure off.
I do have to leave. I have to drive 3 hours back to Eau Claire, and I'm a keynote speaker tonight at a dinner. So I just want to make sure I have time to get gas and get there in time. So
thank you
I'm
so much.
So happy to be a part of this again, and look forward to next year.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Well, Lynn, you have anything you want to add here? I don't have much more. You all really covered it, and I'm so appreciative.
This was such a great group.
Yeah.
Everybody was so concise. I never had to step in and remind people of time or to stay on task. You guys are great. You were so prepared. I appreciated listening to all of you.
Me too. And like I said, y'all make my job easy. So thank you. And just thanks for your thoughtfulness. And
I gotta say, it's fun to hear that already. True is like, if you want me to serve next.
I know, that's what we like.
So we haven't set that panel yet, but let us know if you're up for.
Hey, I know how to do it now, right? So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it seems like a good sign to me that, after you made it through today and you would be willing to commit to it again. So I'll take that. Well, we do want to make sure to compensate all of you. So if I don't, I think that I have everyone's W-9 and new supplier form. If you're able to accept that payment, but I will follow up if we have any questions about those or about a change of address or anything like that. So I will reach out later today, but if there's nothing else, thank you so much. And so good to see you all, and just take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Have
Bye.
a great day, folks. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.